boys and girls. I'm here to do a math video with you guys today. This is lesson 128. So if you'll go ahead and grab your math workbook, a pencil, and if you have a highlighter nearby, go ahead and get that too. And turn in your book to page 255. I mentioned last week that we would be doing some new things this week in math, and this is the main new concept that we're going to be talking about. It's called solid figures. Last week we talked about plane figures. Okay, plane figures are just simple your flat shapes. We also call them polygons, shapes that have sides to them and that are flat. An example of that would be a triangle, a rectangle, a square, things like that. Whereas this week we're going to be talking about solid figures, which are things that have three dimensions. They have more than just a flatness to them. They've got dimension to them. And I think when you look at this page and you look at some of the examples that I'm going to show you, you'll be very familiar with those. So if you have your book open to page 255, yep, let's go ahead and look at the section in the middle of the book there, the orange rectangle that has some terms in it. I've got these written up on the board for you. And the first one that we're going to talk about is a vertex. And we have already talked about vertexes this year because on a regular triangle or square or rectangle, you do have vertexes. But today, when we look at solid figures, you'll see that there are more vertexes, or the plural of that is vertices. But a vertex is where three or more edges meet. It is also the point of a cone. And I'm going to use an example similar to the one that they have there for you of using a rectangular prism. I'm going to use a tissue box. Let's stuff that little tissue in there. This was the best example I could get. I do have some shoe boxes too, but they're bigger. But this is a rectangular prism. And when we're looking at a solid figure like this, the vertexes would be those corners or those points where the edges meet. And we'll talk about edges in just a minute. But as you can see, there's a lot more on a solid figure than there is on just a flat plane figure, because you've got four right there, okay? But then you come over here on this end and we have four more, okay? So that gives you a total of 8 vertices on a rectangular prism, whereas on just a plain rectangle, you'd have just 4 vertices. So that's the difference, okay? And I have an example of a cone here too. Not the greatest examples I have here. At school, I have much better things to use that are just a lot better in my opinion, but I made my own cone because I didn't have any good examples here at home. I usually have birthday hats. That's one thing I usually show students at school. And then of course I've got my box of blocks that has cones in them. And sometimes, if my kids are lucky, we have a box of sugar cones in the house for ice cream cones. But this is a cone, and I want to show you this now because a cone also has a vertex. This is the vertex on a cone. It is that point where the curved surface, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, comes up and meets here at the top. And this is a vertex. So a cone has just one, okay? But it is a 3-dimensional shape, and we'll look back at that in just a second. I do have another thing from home that's very close to what a cone is like, so we'll talk about that too. But the second term here, and like I said, highlight these as we go along. The second one is a face, and I'm going to go ahead and use this tissue box again because it's just a good example. We'll look at some other shapes in just a minute. But a face is a flat surface of a solid figure. That would be all these flat sides, okay? These are all faces, just those flat sides. Just another word really for the sides. There's just, again, a lot more of them in a solid figure than there is on a plain flat figure. Okay, so these are your faces here, here, just all those flat sides, those flat surfaces are faces. Okay, all right, the third one there is an edge. An edge is where two faces meet. Again, most of these terms you're familiar with. This one you're familiar with just from being around your house. A lot of times your parents might warn you to be careful and don't hit yourself on the edge of a table or even on the edge of your door frame, okay? But we're talking about an edge when it relates, again, to a solid figure like this rectangular prism or this tissue box. And your edges would be these corner side pieces here where your faces come together and meet. This is the edge, okay? So there's one there, There's one here. There's another one here. There's these here at the top. So there's a bunch of edges where those flat surfaces come together and make that crease or that edge. That's what those are called. All right. And then the last one is a curved surface. A curved surface bends smoothly and continuously. You're going to have a curved surface, and again, I'll bring out the cone to show you. Anytime you've got a surface that does not have an end, really, that's why it says the word continuously. It does not have a specific edge. It does not have a specific corner where it stops and starts. It's a curved surface that goes all the way around. That would be on a cone like that. Then another example would be on this small ball or this sphere that I have. This is a sneaker ball, okay? We have these to put in our sneakers to help them stay fresh. But nevertheless, it is a sphere. It is made up of one curved surface, okay? There are no vertices, there are no edges, no faces, none of those. It's just one big curved surface, basically, is what it is. So those are the terms that they want you to remember and that they're pointing lines to on these. So now I'm just going to show you an example of a couple of the shapes that they give you. The first one is one that you're really familiar with, is a cube. All right, sorry, I do not have a Rubik's Cube at home. I thought, oh, that would have been perfect, all right? But I think a cube you're pretty familiar with. This just happens to be a box that I have. It holds my watch, actually. I got this for Christmas. But this is a cube where all the faces are the same size, okay? And a cube we think of when we think of squares, okay? Squares, square here, square there, square here. All the faces are the same size, okay? They're the same size. Of course, these would be the vertexes or the vertices. These would be your edges where the faces come together. These, of course, would be your faces, your flat surfaces. That's a large cube. Here's an example of a small cube, right? If you can see that good, that is a dice, of course. You probably have some games you've been playing over this time at home that include dice, all right? And a dice is a cube where all the sides or all the flat faces, flat surfaces or faces are squares, okay? Then it has those corners that we call vertex or vertices. And then where the flat surfaces or the faces come together, we have an edge. Okay, so that is a smaller example of a cube. All right, and then just a second ago, I showed you this paper cone, which has that curved surface we mentioned and the vertex, okay, the point at the top. I have an example of something that's very similar to a traditional cone, and it's called a funnel. We use this, I don't know if you guys use this, you may have seen this in your garage. Your dad may use this when he's working with some of the liquids that he uses in the garage, maybe even putting some gasoline in a container for the lawnmower. He may use something called a funnel, all right? We use it sometimes in the kitchen for different things. But a funnel is almost exactly like a cone because it has that curved surface, just like we showed before, and it does come to a point. The reason I don't like it as well is because it's not a traditional point because it has a spout, because that's the purpose that a funnel is used for, is to pour things into. So it's not quite as traditional as a cone, like a sugar ice cream cone or even a birthday hat. I've got some cones at school that are blocks that look like that. And then I didn't mention before, but a cone also does have one flat surface, all right? Again, on this funnel, you might think, well, that's not a flat surface, that's open. Well, if it were closed in, that would be a flat surface, okay? We could draw a face on it, all right? This particular cone, is open, so you can't see the face, but there would be a flat surface there if that was filled in. If I were to make a piece of paper the same size of that and tape it on, it would be a flat surface. So a cone has a curved surface, a vertex, and a face right on the bottom. So those are cones. All right, then I mentioned to you earlier, I won't take a lot of time with this one because we've gone over it a little bit, the rectangular prism is made up of rectangles, okay? Rectangles that have the faces, the edges, and the vertices, okay? And somewhere I do have a smaller version of that yet. box that has antibiotic cream in it. Okay, this is also a rectangular prism that's made up of rectangles that come together with edges and vertices or vertexes. Okay, so that's a rectangular prism. I think I showed you the sneaker ball earlier. It wouldn't be proper for me not to show you a basketball for a sphere, okay? Because in our home, we have lots of basketballs. I literally probably could have shown you about 50 different spheres because Ryan is such a ball fanatic. And believe it or not, they're not all basketballs. We have soccer balls, tennis balls, ping pong balls, golf balls, baseballs, you name it, we got it, and it's round. But this is a sphere, okay? And a sphere, as I showed you earlier with the smaller sneaker ball, is just one big curved surface. That's all it is. There's no vertex, there's no edges, and there's no faces. It's just one big curved surface. I won't show you the sneaker ball again, but same idea. One of my favorite ones, I don't know why, I guess because usually for a cylinder, I usually have a Pringles can. And usually I bring enough for third graders to have Pringles. But once again, since we are home, maybe you have Pringles at your house, and in celebration of this lesson, you can go get some Pringles. If not, as you go and search for some of these solid figures or these three-dimensional shapes, you might find something different. I have a cylinder or a can of breadcrumbs here. A cylinder is different than a cone because it has two faces. All right, and I even drew a face on this end just to show you. It has two faces. There is no vertex on a cylinder. All right, it has two faces and a curved surface. This is also a curved surface, just like in the cylinder, and really like in the basketball, because it has no end. It just continually and smoothly bends around continuously. So that is a bigger cylinder than even a can, just like this is a can of black beans, is also the same thing, a cylinder. It's got the two faces. There's one and two and a curved surface. So that also is a cylinder. And I found even one smaller. As you can tell, I like cylinders and they're easy to find in your house, is a smaller cylinder, okay? This one is got two faces also, just like all the other cylinders, and the curved surface. So that is a cylinder. The last one, I'm going to erase what I have here on the board and attempt to draw a rectangular pyramid, okay? A rectangular pyramid, I could not find any in my house. We have never visited the pyramids of Egypt and brought home a souvenir from there, so we don't have that. Now, when I was growing up, I played the piano. We had something called a metronome that was a pyramid, a rectangular pyramid, but we don't have one of those either. So, and at school I've got some blocks that are rectangular pyramids, but here at home I'm just going to settle with drawing one. Here's going to be the base of a rectangular pyramid, and then it's going to go up from there. I'm going to do my best to draw. And that looks kind of crazy because obviously you can see straight through it. But I want you to try to imagine, and if you have a pyramid at your house, that would be fantastic. Ask Mom and Dad if they can find one for you. But a pyramid has a vertex just like a cone does here at the top. Okay? But the difference between a rectangular pyramid and a cone is that a rectangular pyramid has many more faces. Okay, this is a face. Okay, that triangle is a face. Okay, this triangle would be a face. And again, I really apologize. I know this might be a little unclear in the way I'm drawing it. Those would be faces if this was solid. I can't really draw it solid and make you see it. There's a picture there, of course, in your book too that will help you see it better, and your parents can kind of explain it. And then, of course, on the bottom, you've got a face, okay, a face, and that's actually the part that's shaped like a rectangle. The rest of those shapes around the top sides are going to be triangles. So that is a rectangular pyramid, and that's the best I can do. Hope it gets the point across. So hopefully this video helps you. I think overall it's a pretty easy lesson. It just takes some time and patience to count up all those sides, or excuse me, faces and vertexes and edges like you need to. There's not near as much to count when you've got just curved surfaces like a sphere. But if you have any questions, you can certainly send me a note, and you can also ask me during our Google Meet tomorrow, because I will go back over this during Tuesday's Google Meet at 1 o'clock. Thanks, boys and girls.